Well, all right, all right, all right. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another edition of Amplify, the 1920 Negro National League simulation. And tonight, we've got a special guest, the baseball artist, Graig Kreindler. There you are, Greg. Welcome aboard, man.
Hello, how are you this evening?
Doing good, doing good. I'm so glad to have you on here. I've like we were talking a little bit before we started up here. I have been, just a fan of your work, and I just think it's amazing. It puts a whole new perspective on baseball history, and it just brings it to life, and it's just fascinating. What I'm hoping we can do when we're in talking here is maybe if you don't mind, I've got your website queued up. If we can just maybe click through some of your galleries, once we get to that point in our conversation. So
Sure, yeah,
yeah,
I,
because
I'm
I
definitely down for that.
absolutely I think it's going to be really interesting. So talking about perspective, and that was really you know it turned into a decent segue, but the as we were talking earlier, the what I'm trying to do with this stream is really put that perspective on the Negro Leagues that I think needs to be shown because you know there's so much misinformation, no information, missing information, mythologizing going on with the Negro Leagues. That it's why I wanted to bring the historians, the writers, the researchers, the artists, the photographers, the people who have been doing, the work, to uncover all of this for such a long time and get your views and what you have learned in your little journeys, uh, because it's important that people get those perspectives. I'm can hardly wait to talk to you about some of this stuff. So,
Cool. Well, I'm
so
excited.
all right, cool. So, I think a lot of people who maybe have not seen your work, I'm going to put some of that up in a little bit. But um, how did you get into not only the art of baseball and baseball history, but how did you get into art to begin with?
Well, getting into art kind of just happened. It kind of started when I was around like 3 or 4 years old, and I was drawing. Most of the time, I was kind of drawing cartoons, like my favorite cartoons that I was watching as a kid in the early '80s. So a lot of those drawings were of people like He-Man and people from GI Joe and things like that. And I think my parents kind of realized early on that I had, I guess, this natural proclivity towards drawing, and I really loved doing it. It was something I was just doing all the time. I always had a pencil in my hand. Uh, so it kind of started with that, and turned into what we see here, I guess. Um,
And so, what you were, what was the first baseball drawing that you did? Well, let me just preface this. You're named for Greg Nettles, correct?
Correct.
So
Correct. Yeah.
obviously your parents are Yankee fans. So I'm going to think there's a Yankee story in there somewhere, right?
Well, okay. So I was born in 1980, and my father's a big Yankees fan, and my mother's actually a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. So how they got together and have managed to stay together for almost 50 years, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But they figured it out. Uh, but yeah, so I was born in 1980, and my father, I know he was always kind of impressed with Nettles and his play at third base. Especially like in the '78 World Series. Uh, I don't know if he, I don't know if he wanted to necessarily name me after Nettles, but I think somehow my mother saw the spelling, the unique spelling of Greg, Graig, and she really liked it. And I don't know, who suggested it, but somehow they were both cool with it. And, here I am. And kind of, my name has been kind of like, it's been a blessing and a curse because, on the one hand, it's kind of like having this really great connection to Yankee history. But on the other hand, it's kind of like no one really knows how to spell my name or say my name right. It's either Greg or Craig, and spelled
Craig, yeah.
Greg or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So whatever. there are worse things, but
Yeah.
yeah, it it's it's cool to have. I just like the fact that I have a connection to the
Hmm.
game that that in a way I had nothing to do with.
Yeah, yeah, but
And
that's how so many origin stories start, right? They just kind of happen, right? And it's just around. And I mentioned to you before we started that um, I've had on so far so many fascinating people. I mean, Phil S. Dixon and Kevin L. Mitchell, Dr. James Brunson yesterday, and uh, Pete Gordon of the Donaldson Network, and Todd
yeah,
Peterson, and Paul Julian, and everyone has got that same kind of, yeah, I was doing this, and then one day, uh, this really struck me, and it got you on a path. And you get somebody like a Phil Dixon who's literally 40 years of doing it, and what got him on the road, and some of the things he's done, and all of these authors and researchers. It's just it is so cool. And that's you know so who was the first what was the first baseball drawing that you did? Did you always draw baseball, or was there other things you liked besides the He-Man and everything else? Was there other things that you liked?
I mean, I kind of liked drawing everything, but I think I focused mostly on the He-Man stuff. But what happened was when I was, maybe 5, 6, or 7 years old or whatever, I discovered what was left of my father's baseball card collection. Uh, he grew up in New York City and like late 40s, early 50s, and that was kind of the time that he started collecting cards. So he had a lot of the old kind of Bowman and Topps issues.
And they were hand
Of
drawn, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So those first cards, I think they were probably the first cards that I was exposed to, and like you said, they were illustrated, and I something I think something kind of went off in my head that I can do this, not
Hmm.
not something that I can do as a
Yeah.
as a job, as a vocation, but it's like here's a card of Mickey Mantle. I can draw Mickey Mantle for my dad because I know he loves Mickey Mantle, and I get the proverbial pat on the head or whatever. Um, and that's kind of what I did. That's how it started. I kind of fell in love with those old baseball cards, and I fell in love with those players, and I fell in love with the stories of those players that my dad would kind of tell me. At the same time, he was taking me and my brother and my mother would go to ball games, to Yankee Stadium. I think I'm told that the first game I went to, I was either 6 or 9 months old. I obviously have no
Nice.
memory of that, uh, but I've been going, my whole life. So it's just it's there, it's ingrained in my blood, I guess.
Nice. Nice. It's something that I don't think people, if you're not into card collecting, photography and the modern photographs are fine, but there's something special about those hand drawn they're like works of art in themselves. I mean, that's an artist who took the time to draw all of those and illustrate them. It reminds me of like back in the early days of Disney, like where they were, you know, literally hand drawing all of these cartoons, and they're works of art. That's what makes them classic. And what you're doing now, to me, is just it's classic to take the black and white photographs that everybody knows when you look at the black and white photographs of somebody that you've seen. It has a life, but it doesn't. It's dull. It's like looking at it through the smoke, through the haze. And what you do to colorize those and bring them to life, it's like they're back again. And I think it gives people that perspective that um, it was missing from these guys, because there's no color film from back in those. There's very few color pictures. So when you
Right.
do these things, it's just, I mean, it's like that little window that people did not have the opportunity to. And I'm telling you, I look at your work, and it's I don't know how you do it. It's better than a photograph. I'm not
Oh,
kidding. I mean, it really is
thank
amazing.
you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And so that was, and I don't know if people realize, and how hard that is. My dad was an artist, but he did outdoor scenes. He
Okay.
did he did some portraits. He did of, like, JFK and back in the 60s and 50s. But he liked to paint outdoors, lakes and rivers and mountains and things like that. And I can never draw a portrait. I mean, I have a little bit. I do some lighthouses and things like that, but pencil drawings, portraits of people. I mean, how much is more difficult is that? I mean, I imagine it's painstaking, but walk us through, like, how do you to paint a portrait and actually, that's a reflection of that person. What is that like? I mean, it fascinates me. I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, when you're doing a portrait, when you're doing a representational, realistic or trying to be realistic portrait, the most important thing usually is getting just getting the likeness right. I mean, if you show somebody a drawing or painting or whatever of Mickey Mantle, and something's off, it's going to be pretty obvious to that person, and they'll call you out on it. For me, what I try to do, uh, I do think about what is kind of going on in the player's mind, and kind of like what the environment he or she is in. I don't get super involved in that part of it, but what I try to do is really just just observe them in whatever environment they're in, and kind of try to decipher why it is that they look the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if it's a if it's kind of a sunny day or something like that at the polo grounds, and if I'm painting Mel Ott, I'm always really concerned with how the light kind of falls on his face, and how the shadows kind of fall on his face,
Mm-hmm.
from that light, and then how the light kind of falls in the ballpark, and on the dugout that's behind him. And this is stuff that, when it works together kind of in symphony, I think that you're able to connect
Mm-hmm.
with those ball players. I mean, having them in color is a big part of it, because
Mm-hmm.
you know uh, Babe Ruth, he didn't hit home runs in black and white. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like these guys like actually lived in the same space that we live in. They were living, breathing human beings.
Not in a 1930s cartoon. That's right. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I really try to kind of, bring that out. And I I try to just be as true to whatever it is that I'm observing as I can be. I'm not so much concerned with the mythology surrounding these players and
Mm-hmm.
their stats and whatever it is that they did. I'm concerned with portraying them in an honest way, and let the viewer kind of get whatever it is out of it that they get, and let them form their own opinions. So
Awesome.
it's like I'm a cipher, or I try to think of myself as kind of like a cipher for that.
So, how do you do that? So, there's no color. Um, I mean, there's gonna be no color photographs, obviously, of players that are pre, certainly 1900. If there's any, I would imagine they don't even start until maybe the 40s or 50s. I don't even know if they by that time, I guess. So, how do you colorize something that there's no color record of that anywhere? I mean, you must do a lot of research on things like uniforms and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the majority of it is, where it's a lot of research into figuring out, the look of a uniform, the color of a uniform, the color of the trim on the collar, or the color of a patch, or the color of a hat.
Hmm.
And then, I get really carried away and try to figure out kind of the colors of everything in the ballpark, the dugout, the stands, the seats, the poles, all that. And when I do that research, I'm looking through various kind of resources. There's some on the internet that are really great, like especially for uniforms. There's a website called Dress to the Nines that is run by
Yes.
Tom Schieber, right at the Hall of Fame, and that's kind of piggybacking off of Mark Okenen's research of uniforms, and that's very helpful. And then there's another website run by a guy named Craig Brown called Threads of Our Game that focus on 19th century uniforms. So it kind of has the same stuff that's on Dress to the Nines, but just
Hmm.
19th century stuff, and they
Hmm.
have sources for why they picked. Why these uniforms are depicted the way they are, why these colors
Hmm.
look this way, how accurate they think it is, whether it's just kind of an educated guess, because a lot of that stuff, a lot of those details have been lost to time,
Hmm.
and you can't know for certain, you know, what the minutia would look like, on a jersey from like
Hmm.
1869 or whatever. You can sometimes, but it's not there with everything. And what I do is I combine the research with basically all of the painting that I've done kind of throughout my life, the stuff that I've learned while I was in college, how to work from life, how to kind of, I guess, create a mood through my work,
Hmm.
how different, how sunlight, how different kinds of light affects colors, what it does to colors, and how that is really responsible for shaping the world.
Hmm.
It's when you combine that, that's kind of how you get me for,
Hmm.
for whatever it's worth.
No, it's worth a lot. I can tell you that. I know some of those sources. I think that you're referring to because years back I did some research on a screenplay I was writing, and it was on 18 Civil War period baseball was involved
Mhm.
in there, and so all the digging I was doing was for those types of things, and so I'd come across these newspaper articles that would say, the Brooklyn Atlantic's dressed in their natty blue and gray, so that's kind of I'm guessing that's kind of how these guys and you would go ahead and try to piece together like archaeologists, right? Trying to
Yeah.
figure out what these black and white, if there's any photos at all, but
Right.
yeah, I get it. That is very very cool. I think it's an endeavor that, like I said, it just puts life back in these guys that you would never think you'd ever have seen before. So it's very very cool.
No,
What's
thank you.
one question I want to ask you? Tell me the difference. What's a color study? I mean, I'm thinking it's something a little quicker type of a painting. What's the thought process on a color study?
Well, so traditionally, artists painters would do a color study, which kind of acts as preparatory work for a larger painting. So, if they're doing like an 18 by 24, portrait or whatever, they might do a much smaller 5 by 7 color study to kind of, I guess, get an idea of the color schemes that they want to play with in the painting. They might do a couple of color studies. They might do a ton of color studies. It all depends. For me, I kind of use them in that same way where it's like a warm up to the larger painting, so that when I actually get into the larger painting, I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going. And it's also something that people have been really interested in too, which I never really expected, because it was just kind of stuff that I did for myself, to make the paintings, I guess, easier on myself. So
Your color
yeah,
studies are as good. They're works of art in themselves. I mean, they blow me away. Just because that's a lot of your Negro League baseball card set are the color studies. Is that right?
yeah, actually they all are.
Okay.
That was kind of the fella who commissioned all of those works. I think the reason he was able to do it was because they were smaller, and he was able to kind of get a lot more of those done than he had originally planned. Um, so yeah, I mean, if those were my, I guess, regular sized portraits, 12 by 16s or 16 by 20s, I'd still be doing them. I'd probably have
Right.
maybe 20 done or something like that.
How long does
uh,
it take to do a color study?
so they average, between, I'd say, like 5 to 7 hours, I think.
Okay.
It depends on how busy the image is, and how much, I guess, research has to go into it, or how much fumbling around that I do.
All right.
Um, they're pretty quick. I mean, they're not done in one sitting. Uh,
And
usually,
do you usually do one for every painting that you do?
I usually do one for the portraits that I do. I
Okay.
don't do them for the larger works.
You know what? You know what's fascinating about the outdoor scenes that you do to me. Um, you go to a ballpark today, and there's a lot going on, right? And I haven't been to a game in a few years just because of the pandemic last year and everything else. And um, the old stadiums with the giant Lifebuoy signs in the filling the outfield wall, and buy shoes at Joe's or whatever ones are out there.
Right.
It is so cool to see those in color, because you don't get, I mean, you don't get to see a lot of those, because a lot of those stadiums were gone even by the time color photographs came along. So what you're doing there, I mean, you got one sitting behind you there. I don't know what one that is, but I could see it behind you. That it is so cool to see all of those details as well, not just the portraits themselves, but the details in the stadium. You feel like you're there. I think it's awesome. You mind if we take a little poke around at some of your
Yeah,
yeah?
sure.
So let me.
I don't
I'm
know
gonna
what the
put
best
up.
way.
I can put it up on the screen,
Okay,
and then we can we can poke through. So I've got your website. Let me just flip it over there, and then
sure.
just take a few minutes and walk through some of these so people can see them, because who hasn't, who isn't aware of your work, because uh, it's worth the worth the trip. All right, where are you? I am. All right, here we go. So there's GraigKreindler.com,
Hey,
and I mean, this painting right off the bat, it is so awesome. Look at what is right in the center of that painting. Besides the unbelievable detail to this painting, I mean, it looks like you could walk into it. I mean, honestly, it does. And Lou Gehrig and the whole moment that was going on here. But look at what it says right there: betting prohibited. you know, isn't Major League Baseball like right now talking about letting betting to be not prohibited? I think so. I
Yeah,
just thought it
yeah.
was ironic that that's out there. Look at that giant Uncle Sam back there. Whatever he's doing. What was that Uncle Sam back there? What was that?
So, so the advertisement is for botany ties.
Oh wow.
Um, I'm not sure. I know he has his arms kind of spread out. I think he might be like pantomiming, safe. Uh,
Okay.
but
Very
I'm
neat.
not. I'm not
Very
100%
neat.
sure.
So I'm going to go to your. Let me just bring them up here. Here's your small work. So these are a lot of 19th century guys here, and
Yeah.
I recognize many of them. Olhas Radburn, King Kelly, Wee Willie Keeler, the Soiled Collegian. Who's that?
That is Fred Tenney.
Uh huh. Let me go back. Let me back up here to the beginning. We can flip through them. So Charlie Bennett, 1886. I mean, look at that. I mean, that to me, I mean, to be able to see these types of pictures in color is just amazing. How, what, oh, you got the sizes there. So 12 by 16. So these aren't terribly big either. It's,
No, no. I mean, especially the ones on the smaller, on the small works portion, they're all smaller than 16 by 20. Anything that's above that, I just consider a large work.
so all Haas, look at those blue eyes. How do you know what color eyes some of these guys have? Are you going by the research?
Research, but for some of them, or maybe even a lot of them, they have to be guesses.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of try to make my best educated guess from
Mm-hmm.
the various photographs that I'll have of the player. And I'm sure that I've guessed wrong on some of them, which makes me very unhappy. But that's the great thing about oil paint. If I get the painting back, I can fix it.
Fix it.
So
Look at that baby faced John McGraw. Wow.
yeah, he's a kid in that.
Yeah, he looks like he's about 16 years old in that picture. Wow.
Something like that. He's tiny.
Yes, he was. Oh man, Chief Sock Alexis. Wow. So, okay, let's talk about this while we're flipping through them.
Sure.
So these paintings are you doing any work that you're potentially selling, or is it all commissioned by someone for you to do? What's that process like?
It's both, right? So right now I'm like super backed up with commission work, and that I feel like really gosh, the past really the past decade, luckily for me, has been just basically commission work. I try to do stuff that's on spec,
Mm-hmm.
stuff to just kind of have in my inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I'll post it on social media,
Oh
and
wow.
someone will see it and they might love it, and
Uh-huh.
they might buy it, and then that piece automatically it gets sold. So it's like, all right, well, I still don't have anything for inventory, so I gotta do something else. um, and it's rare, but it's more often than not I'm just doing commission stuff.
Look at that Christy Mathewson. Wow. Look at the eyes. Unbelievable. I mean, Christy Mathewson, every time I got goosebumps. I'm not kidding you when I just saw this picture.
Oh man.
And one of the reasons why Christy Mathewson, I have a soft spot in my heart for Christy Mathewson. Factoryville is right outside of where I grew up.
Oh,
and
okay.
and literally the little league in Factoryville, Pennsylvania, is named the Christy Mathewson Little League. And so
Aw.
when I was a kid, I'd always heard about Christy Mathewson because he's from that area, and Huey Jennings is from Pittston, which is a lot of ball players, especially in that period, 1900 to late 1890s to 1920s, 30s, are from that northeast area. But we got to play when I was in Little League for a championship of the area at Christy Mathewson at that field. And that was when I really found out more about, when you're an 11, 12-year-old kid, who's Christy Mathewson. And so I will never forget that. So every time I see Christy Mathewson picture or anything about him, it always brings back memories of that growing up.
That's awesome.
I've been out of Pennsylvania about 20 years now, but when you grow up somewhere, that's kind of where your heart always
Yeah, I
is.
mean
So
that that's where the roots are.
that's right. So I'm
So that makes sense.
still a Philadelphia sports fan, so I still have a soft spot for all of that. Wow, look at that! You even got Japanese ball players in here. Amazing. Nap Lajoie. I mean, these, another Christy Matt. Look at him in this suit.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Oh
thank you.
wow, this one here. I've seen this photograph in black and white. Obviously, they always talk about his blue eyes, don't they? In a lot of things that.
Yeah, yeah. Blonde haired, blue eyed, kind of supermodel kind of looking guy.
Right, man. Fred Merkel, the Merkel boner. Rube Waddell. Another. You got a lot of Christy Mathewsons, huh?
Yeah, Christie's a popular one.
Uh huh.
He's not the most popular, but he's
Look
up
at
there.
his look at the sweater. Even has like the sweater lint. I mean, that is just amazing. It's
Oh,
just
thank you.
amazing stuff. It really is. Man, oh man, Honus Wagner. I'm telling you, it's like you could reach out and shake their hand. I mean, this stuff is just all right. Jose Mendez. Tell me about why you like Jose Mendez. I heard you or I saw you mention somewhere that one of your favorite Negro League players is Jose Mendez.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's something about him that when I first heard about him, it was through Ken Burns, through
Mm-hmm.
the baseball documentary, just mentioning how dark his skin was and how he was called the Black Christy Mathewson.
There you go. The connection. Yes.
Yeah, and I read up on him, and you basically discover that he's basically Pedro Martinez of his time,
Mm-hmm.
and just the way that he was talked about in Cuban newspapers. I mean, this guy was worshipped,
Mm-hmm.
like a god, and
Mm-hmm.
in Cuba, and then he comes to the United States and plays in the Negro Leagues and is kind of a different kind of pitcher at that point in his career, but. It's a guy that like a lot of people have still never even heard of, even though he's a
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Famer. Passed away at a pretty young age,
Mm-hmm.
and I think with him, it's just that look that he
Mm-hmm.
had, just his face. There's something really
There
appealing.
are there are some. I think you've done some of them when he gets older. That his features become more, even more kind of chiseled looking, and
Yeah,
they're fascinating. He looks younger here, maybe in his 20s. I'm thinking,
yeah, yeah,
1910. Yeah, so he was probably in his mid 20s, only maybe early 20s at that point. But that's a good. Since we're on that topic, so as I mentioned to you, these conversations I'm having with people is to get everybody's perspective on on not just baseball history, but history of the Negro Leagues, and how I started doing it was, as I mentioned to you before we got on here, was when 1920 to 2020 was the centennial anniversary of the Negro National League, and there was a lot of things that were going to be planned around it, both at the museum in Kansas City with Bob Kendrick and other things, and then the pandemic shut all of that down. And it was a way doing this to try to get help in whatever little effort I can to reboot this and maybe shine a little bit of that's a Conlon picture, isn't it?
yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got that book,
Yeah,
the
it's a great.
works of his photographs. Boy, oh boy, that is awesome. Look at the hair on his hand. Amazing. I mean,
Well,
I mean, every time I see all your stuff, it makes me want to, I want to go see them for real somewhere, because that,
I wish you could. I
yeah,
wish you could go somewhere.
I know. So I want to show some of the outdoor ones. You've even got um, some of the women. Oh, all right. Very cool.
Yeah, just she's the first, Dottie, but not the last.
Not the last, yeah.
Not the last.
So where I was going with what I was saying, I started looking at this stuff. I got off I got off track here. Is there is so much misinformation, uh, lack of information, um, mythologizing that has been done around the Negro Leagues. And why I brought that up then is because, you know, yes, he was known as the Black Christy Mathewson because that was the way of the world, right? I mean,
Right.
these guys were not playing in the Negro Leagues and barnstorming and playing in Cuba and the Dominican and other places because they weren't good enough to play in the major leagues. They were playing because they weren't allowed to, and there's a big difference there. And that's how those names came about because they wanted, people who knew better wanted to try to give white folk, white fans, an idea of what they were missing. Maybe I mean, because that really to me is the biggest. I mean, there's lots of tragedies in all this, but it was a lot of years of uh, just there's a lot of years of misery, I'm sure, for a lot of people. But what was lost to a couple generations, you can't bring it back. But
No.
we can do what you're doing, and we can do what so many other people are doing, and try to shine light on it, and take away that mythology and the storytelling, because some of it's not it's not the right way to view it. And so, in all of the conversations I'm having with these historians and writers, and is to try to let people know that what's the real story here, because
Right.
it's there, and more and more of it keeps getting uncovered every day. There's a Philly, one of my favorites, Richie Ashburn. Yeah. But I wanted to show some of your outdoor. I'm sure they're in your larger ones. So it's a Darryl
Yeah, those are
Strawberry.
mostly in the larger ones.
Wow, look at Ripken in Rochester. Wow. Holy moly.
I love that image.
That is so cool. I mean, yes. Rochester. Amazing.
I just love that light. I
Uh-huh.
that's what attracted me to that image. I mean, the guy who commissioned it, he wanted a Ripken painting, and I kind of sent him that
Oh,
image,
beautiful.
and he at first he didn't love it because he's like, well, his face is in shadow, you can't really see it. And I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
trust me, something within me is calling out to do this painting. I just, give
Classic.
me a chance. So
It's
he
classic.
luckily did, and he likes it. So that makes
Look at the reflection in Jeter's helmet. I can only imagine what some of these look like up close and personal. I mean, that is just. I mean, look at this one. There's no way that's a painting. I swear, man. You look at this and you think that that is a photograph. It is just amazing, amazing.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh man, I think I've seen some pictures you've posted on Twitter and some other places of your process, which I think is it's really cool to watch. Have you done any time lapse things of how you do things? I mean, I think people would be fascinated to see some of these things, but I imagine a lot of it is very intricate, and it's just not something that is conducive to that. But it would be cool to see.
Yeah, I've done a couple. Admittedly, they've been done on uh, you know with cameras that aren't the greatest of quality, and the production value leaves a lot to be desired. But I'd like to do more in the future. I'd like to kind of set myself up to kind of make
That would be.
those a more regular thing.
I think
Um,
a lot of people would love to see that.
yeah, I would really love that. It's like it's on my list, my never ending list of stuff to do.
I'm sure you would have a lot of followers who would love to see that. That would be fun. Who's Samuel Wilson? I got to say that I don't know who he is.
So Samuel Wilson is supposedly he he played baseball for Harvard, and
Mm-hmm.
but being a politician in the Boston area, and he was apparently very close with Ernest Thayer,
Okay.
who was inspired supposedly by Samuel Wilson to write Mighty Casey at the Bat, or Casey
No
at the Bat.
kidding. I have. That's. I see. I learned more than I mean, I knew I was going to learn a lot tonight about what you do and how you do it, but that is a baseball tidbit that I had never heard that. That is really cool. Samuel Wilson. I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I know that John Thorne has kind of dived into that area and talks about him a bit, uh, and I think he kind of dispels the myth about
Hmm.
Casey being based on like King Kelly,
King
which I
Kelly has
think
always
was.
been the. Yep.
So I think he kind of dispels that, but uh, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to pinpoint
Look at Rube Waddell.
it.
Oh man, that is incredible. Looks like he's either going to a wedding or a funeral. You know what's the backstory on this picture?
I actually don't know. It's the image was actually sitting in the archives of the Chicago History Museum, and it's from just a series of photos of him in this suit, just posing in a studio.
Wow, he was a character. I know that, and
Yeah,
to see look at a young Honus Wagner. It looks relatively young anyway. Well, I guess he's probably not. It's hard to tell really.
yeah,
Yeah,
he hasn't.
back in back in those days, I mean, guys could have been 35 and they looked 75. In the case, I always laugh. People put this out on Twitter all the time, or in other places, right? They'll show this picture of Sparky Anderson when he was 50, and then they'll put it side by side with Brad Pitt, and they'll say both of these guys are 50, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
you see, Sparky Anderson compared to Brad Pitt. I mean, it's a different day and age. That's for
yeah. Well,
sure.
people sometimes I get the same thing where people kind of question why that is, and
So,
the answer is kind of always these guys grew up in a completely different
oh
time,
boy,
and
yeah.
they uh,
Look at Rip Van Heltren. Holy cow.
my
That
favorite.
mustache is
Uh,
wicked.
I love it. I love
That
it
is wicked. Yes.
so much. He's
Johnny
such
Evers. Look at him. He looks like Opie.
yeah. Yes, he does.
These are great. Wow, that's a young. That's a well. Again, it's hard to tell. So Ty Cobb in 1907 would have been
He's young.
26, 25, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure when
He's
he was
probably
born.
even younger. He's probably like 23.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, in that general ballpark.
Wow, look at that one of Walter Johnson. Where is he? Why is he in his baseball uniform in that kind of setting? I guess they kind of did pictures, I guess, like that.
Yeah, yeah, that was a pretty common thing to have ball players in
Look at
these
those
photographers
long
too.
sleeves. That is awesome with the stripes. My goodness gracious.
He's so cool looking.
Yeah. All right, so here we got some outdoor ones. So tell us which ones are any of these in the Baseball Hall of Fame? Because a couple of your works are in Cooperstown, are they not?
Just one. Uh, they actually they just got one a month or two ago. So it's a fairly recent development.
This is a big
Uh,
one here, 62 by 40. That's a good size
yeah,
picture, man. That's
yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I would like to put that on my wall one day. That's for sure. Look at that.
Well, the greatest compliment that, or one of the greatest compliments that anyone had ever told me, the guy who bought that, he had it up on his wall, and he said it was the first time that he was ever able to hang any baseball art like in a kind of a family room
Mm-hmm.
setting and not
Yeah.
have his wife give him any guff about it. And I was like, that's all I can ask for. That's
Cool.
great.
He looks like I don't know, like Heath Ledger. I mean, I like looking at Crab Evers and some of these guys. Do you picture any real people or characters or anything when you're doing some of these to get some ideas or not?
In what way?
So, like if someone has features similar to someone who you know what they look like in color, would that be something that you might draw on?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually, I don't know how many people I've told this, but uh, I actually, in my head, I have a casting list of which
I
one of
get
my
it.
friends, the people I know,
I
who
get it.
could play, ball players in a movie who just look like them. So, I've got a Jimmy Fox, I've got a Rube Waddell.
How cool.
Yeah, I've got a few people, and I
Love
do
it.
kind of think of them when I paint them.
Love it. No, I could see how that would be uh, helpful, really. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I try to think of that stuff. I mean, so like if I'm drawing or if I'm painting someone like DiMaggio, I'm thinking, okay, here's the guy who grew up in San Francisco, and he Italian blood. So I'm
hmm
thinking, okay, skin tone, he's probably going to have like an olive skin tone,
yes,
Mediterranean kind of color. So I will, in addition to whatever it is, whatever reference I'm working from with him, I'll have up some color photos of Italian, men or women, just so I can get an idea of what happens to their skin in that kind of light.
very cool. Now, there's another thing about these pictures. Like I said, I love the outdoors. You get an idea of the classic beauty of some of these old ballparks that they were playing in. I mean, that looks like a wooden grandstand. Where is this one?
That is in Chicago. That's the West Side Park in
Very cool.
Chicago.
Um, boy, oh boy, what is that up there? What's the blue up there? What are they? What are they? Is that a vendor? What are those little the blue balls that are up in the middle right?
Those are just skylights, or not
Oh, it's a
skylights.
light.
It's
So
like
it's
the
it's
back
the sky through the.
sky poking through. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. All right. So, ooh, this one. This picture's one that you see in a lot of
Yeah.
publications of Ty Cobb sliding into third base. Very cool. Cy Young. Boy, oh boy. I could you could spend all day looking at this stuff. So which one is in the Hall of Fame?
That one
That's
actually
what I thought.
just got on. Good
That's what I
timing.
that was what I thought. Yeah. Why'd they pick this one?
Well, so when they originally contacted me, they wanted something that I had done, and I think they really liked the fact that I wasn't uh, an artist who didn't only kind of focus on the Babe Ruths and Lou Gehrig's and Christy Mathewsons.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that they saw this, and it had Home Run Baker in it, who was a Hall of Famer, and it had Fred
Mm-hmm.
Snodgrass, who was important in the history of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people who aren't necessarily big names. The fact that they had,
Mm-hmm.
there was a painting done of these guys, I think that really kind of attracted them to this particular painting.
It's beautiful. I mean, just the lay of the dirt and the dust flying, and I love whoever that is back there waving safe.
Waving safe,
That
yeah.
is so cool. Whoever that was, yeah, he's memorialized forever. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
much to his chagrin.
Yeah, whoever he was. I want to just throw these up for just a second. So we talked
Sure.
about them earlier, the color studies, so people could see the difference between these. And some of these are fascinating. I mean, you could hang color study or not. I don't care what you say. I'd put these on my wall. I mean, these are these are just amazing to me. If this is something that you did in a few hours,
Yeah,
my goodness, uh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Who's
thank you.
this? Is that not Samuel Wright? Is it
Uh, that's George Wright. Yeah,
George Wright? Okay, I
yeah.
know.
Sorry, the
I
this the website's not completely
that's
finished.
okay.
So these
I,
are all.
I I thought he looked like one of the Wright. There was Harry Wright,
Yeah, Harry Wright was
George
the
Wright,
first one.
and
Yeah,
Sam. I think was the youngest of them, but George and Harry were on those several teams together for a long time.
yeah.
So these are color studies. Yeah, I mean, you could see that they're less finished than the other portraits, but I mean, they are still incredible pieces themselves.
Thank
And then that's why while I'm flipping through these, let's talk about. So now you did and I have it right here. I'm going to, I'll, well, I'm not going to put it up yet, but I have the 184 card set of the Negro
Oh,
Leagues Legends. It's in my hands right now.
oh, cool.
Paseo YMCA, February 13th, 1920. And I think I have set number, let me look at the back here, number 154 of 5,000. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
You're
so
an early one.
I got in there as early as soon as I saw it. I was like, oh my god, I got to have that. And so tell us about this project, because this is just to me, about the number of people that you uh, did these, and then how did you decide who became part of that set? I mean, there was many more than 184, right?
Yeah, the total at the end of the day, I think, was 230. I think either
Wow.
220 or 230. Well, so it's kind of a long story, but basically, I met a collector uh, in 2000 and I think 16, a
Hmm.
collector who was based out of the Pacific Northwest, named Jay Caldwell. And Jay, in addition to being into baseball cards and memorabilia and things like that, is also very much into civil
Wow.
rights.
Hmm.
And he has a very or had, because I think he just sold it. He had a very impressive collection of Negro Leagues and Cuban leagues and like civil rights memorabilia.
Hmm.
And he was looking for an artist to do some paintings for him.
Hmm.
Of I think originally what he had kind of thought was that he wanted to get maybe 10, 15, 20 paintings of his favorite ball players from those leagues. And he discovered me, I guess, and he liked what I did, and we kind of talked about doing a project together that I was going to do. I think the number started out at like maybe uh, 30 color studies of Negro Leaguers.
Hmm.
And so at the time I'm basically jumping for joy because this is kind of like a dream project where I get to paint guys that I don't normally paint, and someone's going to pay me for it, which is great. But he he got really involved with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum
Hmm.
and Bob Kendrick and Ray Doswell and all those guys. And he kind of had the foresight to think about the fact that 2020 would be
Hmm.
the 100-year anniversary of the formation of the Negro National League. And he knew that that was a big deal.
Hmm.
And he knew that the museum was going to kind of celebrate it in their own way. And he wanted to put together a show that uh, kind of would celebrate in conjunction with them.
I'm gonna put you back on.
So he, I had this list of like 30 players or whatever.
All right, you're
Uh,
back. You are back live.
awesome. Um, the list was like of about 30 players, most of whom I'd heard of, and I guess as the days went by, days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months. Jay kind of got more carried away in his thinking. So 30 players became 50, or 30 portraits became 50, and then 50 became 75, and then 100, 150, and then 200. And, he was like, okay, so basically the museum is going to have this show in 2020 to celebrate the centennial. And, my memorabilia is going to be there, and all of these paintings are going to be there. So yeah, it was basically just a race to get as many done as I could over those 4 years. Uh,
So cool.
he
Uh,
provided me with the list
so you had a
of
little bit of runway. That was my biggest question: was how much time to do 230?
Yeah. I mean, I had to put a lot of other people's paintings aside, like commission work aside, which
Hmm.
uh, I'm, some people were not happy about, but this was a project that I couldn't say no to. Um, but yeah, he gave me a lot of time, and we had a list of players who he wanted, and we discussed them all the time, back and forth, talking about whether someone might be better suited in that person's spot, or whether we wanted them in this uniform or that uniform,
Hmm.
and yeah, we it's like we carved out the game plan as
Wow.
we went along. Um,
230 individual pictures just of Negro Leaguers. And there are multiples. I know even just based on the card set, there's multiple satchel pages and so forth, just because they played for a number of teams, and I'm thinking that's probably why they were picked. They wanted to portray all those, but the,
right.
there are people who don't paint 23 paintings in a lifetime, let alone let alone the volume. So
Yeah,
how did you do that? How were you able to work in? I mean, you were getting any sleep? I mean, how were you able to get any of your other work done with all
I
of this? Boy,
I didn't get much done. I mean, it was mostly stuff from this project. Which I again I loved it, but
I can
it
imagine. Yeah.
was really hard. Balancing that with being being a father to one toddler, and then as it went along, two toddlers.
Nice. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was uh, it was a lot, and it's still a lot because it's over, but it's not entirely over. Uh, with Jay, I mean, I'm not necessarily doing more portraits for him, but I'm still kind of working with
Hmm.
him because he's put out a lot of products, including that baseball card set, and he's been doing things with bobbleheads and
Hmm.
T-shirts and stuff like that. And really, the only reason I kind of was cool with him doing that was because Jay kind of went about it the right way, and he got the families involved, and was
Hmm.
giving royalties to them and giving royalties to the museum, the way that stuff should be.
Nice.
So thankfully it's been this amazing endeavor that putting together was incredible, and going down to Kansas City for the opening was incredible.
I bet.
And about a month later, the world shut down.
Yeah, I'm so glad you got to do that and got that in because I can only imagine walking into that building is impressive and so much fun enough. But here's all of your paintings and it's surrounding you. And what was, I mean, what kind of feeling was that to just see? Because I imagine you've never seen them in that context, right? I mean,
No,
you're seeing
no.
them one at a time or however many you got going at one time, but now they were all there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a strange feeling. It was
I
pretty
bet.
overwhelming.
I
Uh,
bet.
just even looking at the wall, the majority of them were kind of plastered along one really long wall. And I'm just looking at them and thinking that is a lot of hours of my life right there.
You did that, and
I
that
did a
is
lot of
just amazing. Boy, oh boy, yeah. Tip of the cap to you, man. I'll tell you this is like some amazing, amazing stuff.
I appreciate it. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, I do appreciate the love that I've gotten from everyone for doing this, but the same amount of love I think needs to go to Jay, because Jay was kind of like the mastermind behind this thing,
mm-hmm.
and he kind of he made all those wheels turn, and
Cool.
I'm hoping that people are uh, like our stream, I'm hoping that people are just kind of able to kind of educate themselves about these
Yes.
men and women and get inspired to learn about them and to learn about the Negro Leagues, and uh, that is it's like one of the
So
most important things I've been a part of.
I bet. To me, it's definitely worthwhile to be doing these things, and if you're just touching one person, and that person touches two others, and you move it on. And that was what I wanted to ask you, right? Because we were talking earlier about how the modern day perspective of the Negro Leagues, uh, a lot of people want to put into that box of 162 games
Right.
and statistics and launch angle and whatever other nonsense that they want to put it into, right? But that wasn't the way the game was played. I mean, these guys were playing under um, conditions that nobody, to that certainly you or I could not even imagine what they were uh, having to deal with. But this was their way of life and their job and how they made money. So when they were doing barnstorming and playing in these leagues, they for two things going on, right? Um, they couldn't play in the major leagues or in organized white leagues, but it also was a way in between games and so the Negro League statistics are not the same um, length of time or context that you would have and people need to understand that, right? So what I wanted to ask you, right? So I don't know what your knowledge of the Negro Leagues was before you started this project,
Mhm.
but I've noticed just in myself over the years, the more like archaeology, right? Just because let's just say you understood something to be a certain way, that dinosaurs looked like lizards,
Right.
and because it's based on the knowledge of the time, and as you uncover more things, you find out maybe they had feathers and maybe they had flu and maybe they did this, and so it doesn't make the earlier things totally wrong. It just means your viewpoint and your context and your reference points and your data has changed over time. So in doing this project, and you said it was what, how many years? 4 years?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
So what was your how did your context change from the beginning to the end of that? Because I imagine it shaped a lot of different things that you had in your head from beginning to end of all that.
Yeah, I mean, so the majority of what I knew about the Negro Leagues was probably it was pretty limited. I whatever I gotten from Ken Burns and whatever I'd gotten from some of the books that I had read.
Mm-hmm.
These weren't books that were specifically Negro League related. These were just books that happened to have a little information about the Negro Leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I knew who Satchel Paige was. I knew who Josh Gibson was. I knew who Rube Foster was. After that, though, after like another 10 ball players, I'd never heard of any of these guys and women.
Mm-hmm.
I just it was a total eye opener for me. Not only with just learning about this whole other entity that existed in baseball, but just something to kind of be conscious of on a personal level. It was something that was really it was really special.
I bet.
I you know what I would tell people, and I still tell people this, that I'm a white male. I'm approaching my middle ages. I can't possibly begin to fathom
Mm-hmm.
what it was like to be an African American in this country. Well, even today, but certainly back then, what that meant,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, personally, socioeconomically, professionally. I can never understand that. I can read about it and I can learn about it, but I can't, I can't, I can't live it like they
Mm-hmm.
did. So it became extra important for me to kind of present these men and women as accurately as possible so that people could learn of their existence and kind of like I mentioned to you before, kind of form their own opinions
Mm-hmm.
and take away from it whatever it is that they're doing. I just thought it was important for me to kind of try to provide an accurate, honest lens into what these players looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still kind of what I do with all my work, but it's still it's that much more important when I'm doing, a Negro leaguer or a Cuban leaguer or somebody who's playing ball, not in the big leagues,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's kind of like, an outsider. It's just, yeah.
So, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I know you're a Grateful Dead fan, and
Yes, I am.
what what do you listen to when you're painting? Do you listen to Grateful Dead music? Is there a certain mood music that you listen to when you're painting, or does it not matter?
It, I mean,
Do you listen to music when you're painting?
I do. I think less often now I listen to music. I mean, I love the Dead, and I'll listen to them whenever. Uh, More often than not, when I'm working, I find it a lot easier to kind of get into my headspace, the zone or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm listening to a podcast, or if I have a uh, a movie on kind of in the background, or even on
Gotcha.
my
Yeah.
phone, something that I haven't seen before, something that I can ignore.
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah,
Interesting.
that's usually what I have going on.
Cool. So what are the last, I don't want to take up too much of your time because this has been great, but
No,
one thing I've always wanted to ask you too was, so you're working off of photographs.
yes,
Um, have you ever considered doing something that would be not from a photograph? I mean,
yes.
that would be your portrayal of a player, or not, or is that something that you wouldn't consider?
No, I would consider it, and I've done a few paintings that were, uh, they might not be based on one photograph. They might be based on a number of photographs that are kind of a composite.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of get more so what I want, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is I have a really hard time believing that the scenes are real and that they work, because in my
Gotcha.
head I know that they're made up and I know where each part kind of came from.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get past that in
There's
my
my
head, then I think I would do a lot more
right.
that way.
There's my there's my Paseo YMCA.
Nice. I got to go in that building, which was very special.
Cool, cool, cool. Um, yeah, this was fantastic. I just want to make sure everybody knows GraigKreindler.com. Um, if they want to check out your work, what else you got going on? You don't do prints, right?
I
You
do not.
just so um, why?
Well, the biggest reason is that in order to do prints, in order to do it, quote unquote, the right way,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of there's a lot of legal red tape that kind of needs to be uh, jumped over or jumped through or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. All of it having to do with IP, with intellectual property.
That's what I figured you were going to say. Yes.
Yeah. So if I did a painting of Babe Ruth and I wanted to, sell the painting, uh, technically, under my First Amendment rights, I don't have to pay anyone to do that. I don't have to. It's like it's a one of one work of art. It's just the single piece, and I'm not using Babe Ruth or the
Gotcha.
Yankees, in a commercial way.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you make prints, you do that. And the moment you make prints, you, I mean, I feel that I need to be licensed in order
Mm-hmm.
to, because I wouldn't want to, get the wrath of MLB on me or the MLBPA or any of
Mm-hmm.
those people, because, they can be rather litigious, and I stay away from that. Uh,
Yeah, I don't
I
blame you.
think that those licenses are incredibly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know that. to have an MLB license, I think the annual cost of that is probably like, I think 50 grand, which is, it's a lot. And, it's a lot to kind of, it's like a different mode
Mm-hmm.
of business where, I have to worry about selling prints. I have to worry about marketing them and shipping them and dealing with customers in that sense. And I just,
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
even if I could, it's like right now at least I don't really have the bandwidth for it.
Right.
But I I know that a lot of people would like me to do it, and I wish I could. I don't know.
I get it.
I don't know when or how that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, there are so many people who are fans of your work. It would be something to consider, but I get it. I mean, it's not something that plus the uniqueness of what you're doing makes it so much more. Um, I don't want to say value. Everybody puts a different value on whatever they want to put on it, but
right.
uh, by limiting the number that's out there, it is truly your works of art. I mean, there's no other way to put it because I mean, Negro League is set aside. That's a whole other situation. But all the other works that you've done, they are truly a work of art. I mean, when I look at that, I mean, when you talk about the Norman Rockwells and some of the people who have done baseball art like that, I have the Kadir Nelson book,
Oh, great.
which is to me just incredible that he wrote the book and he drew the and he drew all and painted all of those. It's just fantastic stuff. Now his is a whole nother style than yours. I mean, yours are to
Yeah.
me are photographs. He's putting a little bit more of his own kind of artistic impression on a lot of his work, which is cool. That's why I guess why I asked you that question earlier about it. Would you consider doing something like that? But
Right.
yeah,
Uh,
I'm with you. I would have a much I would always be second guessing and doubting myself all the time if I ever did something like that too. I got it. Uh,
yeah. I mean, listen, I second guess myself, enough as it is, like with what I do.
I know.
So,
Boy.
but I look at people like Kadir, and I've been a fan of Kadir since he graduated college. I mean, I remember he went to Pratt University, and he was in the old Society of Illustrator annuals that I used to devour when I was at the School of Visual Arts when I first got in
Hmm.
there. And I was like, this guy is something else. And the fact that he's been as successful as he has been is no surprise, and
Hmm.
it's well deserved. He's an absolute beast. So good.
It's a lot of fun stuff. So here we are. Anything else you want to add? I mean, we covered a lot of ground. Every time I get on these conversations, I mean, I literally could talk to you guys. I mean, I told Phil Dixon and I started. I think it was around 9 the same time last week, and
Mm.
it was 10:30, and I'm like, all right, Phil, you want to go? And they're like, oh, we're still talking. And, I mean, I could have talked till the sun came up. I mean, and look at your paintings. I mean, this was great. I'm so glad you took the time to do this, and I hope just like so many other people that are out there putting their work out there that people take from this the message that I think we're all trying to get out there, especially and we're talking about in concerning the Negro Leagues and find out more. One of the things I try to do on Twitter, every day I try to pick a town, a city, an area, because the Negro Leagues literally touched everywhere from,
Yeah.
corner to corner. And everywhere else in between, and get people to understand that at some point, probably in at some point in their town, there was a player, a team, a barnstorming tour came through there. Somebody is from your area. Go find that history, learn about it, talk about it, get it out there. And a lot of these guys, like you, I think you've done some helping of Pete Gordon with the Donaldson
With
Network.
the Donaldson.
They're looking for people to do those kinds of things. When they're trying to find the backgrounds on some of these players and John Donaldson in particular, it's they have a whole network of hundreds of amateur or semi-professional, professional historians
Yeah.
that are all contributing, and that's what a lot of this is. It's archaeology, it's digging, and I just think it's just so much fun. And talking to you and other people like you, I appreciate your time. I think this is great.
My pleasure.
Are you working on anything else? What else you got going on? Anything else?
Oh my God. Uh, a ton. Um, I I mean, I could bring some over here to show you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it all that well, but yeah. Give me 1 second. I'll bring something over that might
That you're
show
working
up.
on? All right, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Oh,
Look at Lou Gehrig back there.
so this might get glare.
Look at you
Oh,
with Roberto Clemente. I see behind you, and Lou
yeah,
Gehrig, and unbelievable.
yeah, they're all over the
Man,
place.
oh
They're
man,
my
it's like
wife calls them our roommates.
you are
Um,
like literally like in baseball heaven over there with all this stuff. I
yeah.
mean, oh look at
So
that. That's the '69 Red Stockings.
yeah, this is kind of
Cool.
what I've been working on at least today. Um, it's been a beast, and I'm doing my
Boy,
best to get along with it because the guy has been waiting a while for it. Um, but yeah,
awesome.
it's one of many that
One of many. Boy, oh boy. How do you? I mean, I guess I got to ask you, talk to you all day long. But one of the
yeah,
pictures that really blew me away was you did one of the Big Red Machine that you drew them all as I'm assuming that they had come out for introductions before the game
yeah,
in the 75, was it 75, I think, World
that one's
Series?
76,
76. And every little, every figure standing on that line was like just an exact, I mean, the posture and the facial expressions and everything. It was such a beautiful picture. I'm a Philly fan. I'm not even a Reds fan, but man, oh man, I'll tell you what, that team itself is, legendary. But that picture of them was so cool to
uh,
see that, and then with the backdrop of the crowd in the background, it was very very cool. Very very cool. So
I
that was always I was going to ask you. So you got how many guys are on there? 10 people on that picture of the Red Stockings that you just showed up.
uh, yeah, 10.
10, yeah, that was about the size of a baseball team too. That it's all context, right? Another thing that people want to put 25-man rosters. No, no, these guys, back in these days, I mean, certainly in the 1800s, they had 10, 11 guys maybe,
Yeah,
and you get into the 1900s, they had 14-man rosters maybe. I mean, this was not modern baseball with 25-man rosters and long-term contracts. It's a whole another
right,
world.
right, and
So
no specialists or anything
yeah, and
like
they
that.
weren't. Nobody was measuring,
Right.
launch angle or any crap like that. So so when you're painting, you got to switch gears because some of these guys they look so much. I mean, there's. It's not like you're just painting them all. They're the same. They all have their own characteristics, and that's got to be difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's not necessarily difficult, technically to paint. I mean, painting is hard, but uh, it's I think it's more important to kind of to be aware of that distinction, to be aware of the fact that a crowd uh, watching a ball game, on a cold day in the early 1920s is going to look very different than a crowd
Yeah,
watching a ball game, in 2020.
yeah.
Uh, and the ball players are going to look different. Like everything looks different. The colors that you're going to see are completely different. I think just being conscious of that and being sensitive to it is, I think that's the important part.
Absolutely. So, if you have about another 5 minutes, I would love to show you something.
Sure.
We talked about it before. I'm going to throw up out of the park baseball, and
Yeah.
and so you can take a look at what it looks like. So this is their newest version. So it's a simulation game that it's like Major League Baseball, the show, in that it's players and teams, but you literally can set up any season you want at any time in history with the full rosters and everything else. So now the major league rosters are fairly complete when it comes to all of the information of because if I click on Cristobal Torriente, you'll see what I mean. And there's this little picture up there. They use a program called FaceGen, which literally takes a picture. Let me find Jose Mendez on the Monarchs in 1920. You'll see what I mean. It literally it takes a picture and it makes it into this kind of stylized, generated
Huh,
picture.
that's kind of cool.
It is very cool, right? I mean, it just to give it a little bit of Bullet Rogan. I mean, they're not bad, right? I mean,
Oh,
they're very, very cool. So you could see all these players. With John Donaldson. So it's very cool, and they age, which is kind of cool, right? As these guys get older,
that's
you'll see their features change and so forth, right? So I
yeah.
was talking to these guys at Out of the Park, and so this is a simulation game, like I mentioned, and so there's no game pads, there's no controllers that are uh, you. It's more of a management game, and what I mean by that, and I don't have it set up for this particular league, but it literally has a front office. There's J.L. Wilkinson, as you can see.
Oh
uh,
my God, that's awesome.
Isn't that cool? It's very cool, right? So
Yeah, that's
I
great.
tried to take the time to go through every single player in in the Negro leagues and come up with either a generated picture or some as close as I can if it wasn't because it'll allow you. Let me show you what it does. Right, I'm going to find somebody who I know I don't have a a photo of. Let's say maybe Fred Hicks. I don't know who Fred Hicks was, but yeah, so that can tell the difference because it's not quite as featured, right? But I literally can go in here, and if I don't like the way Fred Hicks looks, and I tried to get him to look the way as best I could based on an old black and white photo, kind of like what you were doing, right? Except
Right,
I'm
right.
not
Yeah.
drawing it, so I can go in here and I can make him any
Oh,
background,
cool. Okay.
and then I can say go ahead and if there's a face gen picture to import, it'll create it. Like if you have a black and white picture, and you can create it. Or if I want a new fictional picture, and it'll change, change his features.
Huh.
If I wanted to change his beard and give him a beard, let's give him a coat hanger. It's funny, right? So nobody had any facial hair back there, but it's actually kind of it's actually kind of crazy, right? I mean, look at that, right? So you can have a lot of fun with this. But anyway, the whole purpose of this was to set up the. Let's see, let me shave him. Oh,
That's amazing.
he's happy. Look at how happy he got when I shaved him. He's smiling now. So so the whole idea. So you feel good when you get a shave, right? It makes you smile.
Yes, absolutely.
So the
Who
whole
doesn't
idea.
love a good shave?
That's exactly right. So the whole idea behind this was to try again with the education of anybody who's not aware of the Negro Leagues, but put it into what people were more looking for, the uh, more standardized context. So I've got the original 8 Negro National League teams, and then I've created the Eastern Colored League.
Oh,
They
okay.
didn't exist yet, but because of the players that were on here, I just felt they needed to be here because Atlantic City, for example, has Louis Santop and Dick Lundy and Oliver Marcel and some of the greats are on this team. So I didn't want these guys left out. They were associated loosely with the Negro National League, but they did
Right.
not play them. Right? It was more. If they happen to be in the area, kind of thing. So, but I didn't want Smokey Joe Williams to not be in this, right? So it's a
Right.
140 game schedule. Everybody's playing each other, whatever that breaks down to. I think it's 23 in the Eastern Colored League and 20 in the Negro National League. And so you can see as the game goes on, we're on June 13th, and Cristobal Torriente is leading the Negro National League at 386. Doc
Not
Dudley, Heavy Johnson with 7 home runs. Over in
not
the Eastern Colored League, Angel Aragon, 385. Blaney Hall. So you could follow this along. Jen Henry Lloyd with Pop Lloyd with 14 stolen bases. Now
That's awesome.
what's actually all going on in the background is the 1920 Major League Baseball season. And the same thing is here. Here's George Sisler hitting 400.
Oh,
There's Gorgeous George. Tris Speaker hitting 399. Where's Babe Ruth? Here he is, Babe Ruth. There's the Babe. Oh, I wonder why Babe's in black and white. Let me fix him up. I don't know why he's in black and white. So you go in here and you can find his picture if you have it, and it will generate it in black and white. Now there's literally tens of thousands. This is every not only major league player but minor league player and all. I think there's something like 30 some thousand pictures that are here that you can choose from. So I've got a couple of babes I can pick, but let's pick this one. Oh, so that's not him. I must be a different Ruth. I'll fix him up later. But the it gives you an idea of what you can do here. So what I did with the Negro National League was I wanted to make sure that all these players had their correct place of birth, date, birthday, the picture. They even have personalities, as you can see. Um, and this is a very generic one, but popularity. All this plays into team chemistry, how the team handles winning and losing, your draw at the gate because there's financials that are playing behind the scenes, and so these batting ratings are a scale of 20/80, just like a scouting scale you'd see today. And so behind the scenes, there's numbers that are there that the game is using, but when you're playing it, you're seeing these ratings, and as the season goes on, they have they get angry, they get happy. Like I bet you, if I look at the who's in last place here, in last place, I think is the Cuban Stars West.
Stars West.
They were
They're
eight.
not having a good
They
season
are
yet.
not having a good season. I'm not sure what's going on there. They were kind of a little better than average team, and it's a long season to go. We're only on a game 30 some, but they're not doing well. So if I take a look at their team chemistry, well, it says nobody likes losing, but Cheo Hernandez. So they have personalities. There's leaders. There's spark plugs, pranksters.
That's
You've
cool.
got disruptive players, all that kind of thing. So it all plays into how the game functions. Now you can play it exactly like 1920, and they will perform more or less the way those numbers would come out, or you can kind of start a season in a certain year and just let them go into the wild.
Love
And
to
they
do.
will age and they will develop and they will regress and they will get injured all on their own based on the internal algorithms and things that they built in here. So it's really a lot of fun. And so I'm not going to do it tonight, but you literally can go in here and if I look at the Monarchs schedule, and you can here's all there, and this is going to blow you away, right? Because here's their last game. They got beat by the St. Louis Giants 10-2, and here's the box score. A little game write up.
Wow.
It has the box score just like you'd see in a newspaper. You want to click on Doc Dudley and see what he's doing for the
Jeez.
season. Has everything that you would see. Ray Dandridge with his first home run, pitching, assists, anything you could think of. You get down here, any game notes. It'll say who the player of the game was. There's your attendance, time of the game, weather. Everything you can think of. There is nothing that is left out of this. I mean,
Oof.
it literally is its own little world here. And so what I do sometimes is I'll play a game out like I did with Pete Gordon. We did a barnstorming game. We actually did um, the Kansas City Monarchs 1920 barnstorming game against the Casey Stengel All Stars.
Okay.
Yeah, which was way
Nice.
fun. It was way fun because it was Casey Stengel, it was the Musial brothers, several other players from the Boston Braves, the Pirates, the Phillies that had gone on a real barnstorming tour. They had the box scores that they sent me, and we set it up exactly that same way. And we played it with Bullet Rogan pitching, and it was really it's just fascinating to watch. So it's like more like watching a video game like you would. You see them pitch, and the ball is hit, and the stadium looks like it kind of looks. I mean, within this environment, right? Or if I wanted to, I could play an entire season in about 5 minutes.
Oh,
I
okay.
just pick a day and off you go. So if you wanted to see the game and actually watch it pitch by pitch, you could do that. which would take as long as a real baseball game. Or if I wanted to, I can say finish today. So here's the standings. You'll see Detroit's 26-12, and I'm going to finish today. I'm just going to play a week here, and oh, I'm going to show you this one other thing real quick before, but you'll see that. So the Stars got beat. Um, the Giants moved up a game. Let's see if that was who beat them. Take a look at the schedule. And nope, the Chicago Giants beat them 10-6. So did the Havana Stars? They lost again. Oh man, poor Havana. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to play a couple of games here. So, but the other thing I wanted to show you, which is kind of cool, you get mail and news and player development updates and tells you how they're doing and so forth, injury reports, all kinds of things. But here's the All-Star fan voting. So on July the 12th, Hebby Johnson is the and I've, like I said, I'm a lot of poetic license here because no Eastern Color League exists until 23. Obviously, there wasn't a 140 game schedule. There's no All-Star game. I'm trying to give it more of a modern flavor, but with these guys, right? And
Right.
so you got All-Star voting. Biz Mackey leading in catcher.
As he should be.
Very, very cool stuff, though. And Eastern Color League, Louis Santop with 14,000 votes. Leading vote getters, Bill Pettis. And so, the vote getting has to do with how they're doing on the season, but also factored in as their players' popularity. So he's extremely popular, Bill Pettis. So he's going to get a little bit more votes from the fans. One thing I forgot, I think I'm going to have to leave it at where we're at because I forgot. I just did the draft, and I'm going to show you that real quick, and then we'll
Okay.
wrap it up here. But I just did the draft, and in this draft, and again, poetic license, but here's the draft log. So the number one pick was Turkey Stearns, 19-year-old out of Gallatin, Tennessee.
That's awesome.
Right? And so there's
Ooh,
Turkey looking
cool
somber as usual, but he's now a member of the Chicago Giants.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Cool Papa Bell was the number 2 pick.
Tubby Scales and Neil
Yeah,
Suttle.
this is a good draft class.
Yeah.
So these guys were all players who were going to come in 1921.
Okay.
And so I brought them in as the draft class of 1920 so that you'll see that Cool Papa Bell. So Turkey Stearns, here's his real life statistics if you wanted to see that. So in 1920 he has, and again you know the backstory on this, but not every season did they have complete statistics and all that good stuff. So
Right.
yeah, this is the best estimate that or best known information at the time. So in 1920 in real life, he played at who would that be then? Nashville Giants, maybe. I'm not sure who the NA Giants are, but that was it. 265, and then in 1923 he comes in and has his normal Turkey Stearns kind of year, But so I wanted to get these guys into the league as well as they really did on a draft. Yeah, Mule Suttle. This is a fun draft class that comes in here.
Yeah, you got some good guys.
Yeah. So anyway, I forgot. I what I need to do now is I'm going to have to decide who makes the team because now they've got more players that just were drafted, and I've got to make those moves, and that's why I got that little message that when I went to play, it said that your roster is. Let me see if I try to do that again. It said the Indianapolis ABCs is over the limit. So let me take a look at. So they have somebody on there. They have 21. The roster limit is 20. Again, that's another poetic license, right? So I can fix that and just move a player off of there. Bob Hill, let's move him off of there. So let's see if it lets me go on now. It does not. So the Hilldales are over the limit. So yeah, I forgot that it's just because of the draft that I have to fix this up. So they're one over the limit as well. So who do I want to move? I got 3 catchers, so Wee Willie Jones will move over here. It's fun to see these names, isn't it? I mean, I just think it's great. Tucson Allen, Bunny Downs, Country Jake Stevens, Judy Johnson, Eggy Dallard. This is a fun team. They're very young, though. In the case of their stars. I mean, this was Country Jake Stevens was only 20. Judy Johnson was only 20.
Nothing
So
to
they're just coming into their own. So they're going to struggle a little bit this year. Phil Cockrell was only 24. So, they're going to get better as time goes on, but they're not, what are they? They're 16 and 22. So having their struggles this year. So let's see if I can. Yeah, so let me play. So I can go ahead and I'm getting that message because I'm technically running all the teams. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and turn the team over to the AI and let them make every roster move,
Oh, geez.
and let them do their and let them do all of the moves. So it would, but I didn't want crazy things to happen. I didn't want you know them trading some player. I wanted to keep it at least somewhat normal. Now the
Right.
other the other intriguing thing, and I may do it for 21 when I'm done here, is I can turn over. If you look at the standings here, the Indians are half game up on the Senators, one up on the Yankees. If the thing that really people want to see, obviously, is the what if these players, what if Major League Baseball was integrated.
Right.
So I wanted to do one season of Negro League only to give people at least a familiarity with the players and the teams there.
Okay.
And then I think in 21 I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let the uh, major leagues purchase players, or however they'll decide to do it. Trade players, sign players, whatever, right? Because this is reserve clause era. All the rules are in place. There's no long-term contracts and all that kind of stuff. So I'd be curious to see who goes where, because what I know what's going to happen. The second I flip that switch and I say that the major leagues can now purchase players from other leagues, immediately you're going to
Yeah.
see Cristobal Torriente signed by the Yankees or whatever
Yeah. It's
whatever
gonna
the
be it's gonna be a pillage.
exactly. So I didn't which is really exactly what happened in real life when you look at what happened after 1947. It was just a downbound type of situation because all of your best talent was now going to the major leagues. So uh,
That's yeah. That's
and
the
so that's why I didn't want to
that's the
happen
rub.
here. I wanted to just have one season of just pure Negro League so that I could have people, guests on, talk about it, get the flavor, get the backstory on some of these players. That's the thing that was great about talking to some of these authors. Um, and Dr. Brunson yesterday, Phil Dixon, Kevin L. Mitchell, all these guys, Todd Peterson, they're not just trying to give you names and dates and numbers and standings and stats. They're also trying to give you that flavor of the player, what he was like, who he
Right.
was friends with, what he liked to do. I mean, and that's what I think is so just intriguing about a lot of the work. And now you layer on top of that your paintings, which further bring these guys to life. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to have on Donna Muscarella, who's a photographer who did the
Oh
Heat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She did
She's going to
Hinchcliffe
Hinchcliffe
Stadium,
Stadium.
right?
So we're going to talk about that project and what she's got going on, and the Josh Gibson MVP push. So all of these things just add more color, more content, more the backstory. And I just think it's important to get these stories, and all of you people that have done all this work for such a long time, and it's just admirable. And I wish everybody knew everything you guys are doing. I really do. I really
Yeah.
do.
Me
So
too.
so here we are on Monday. So we played a week, like you saw. It just takes a few seconds. Like I said, if you wanted to play all the games, you can. I mean, you really can. So the Chicago American Giants have now moved ahead with a 5-game winning streak. The Stars have dropped 4 in a row. Hey, look at that! The Cuban Stars. They're
Not
five.
looking too good.
They're 5-5 their last 10, so they're turning turning it around a little bit. I mean, they literally were off to like a 4-19 start, so they're playing somewhat better lately. And boy, oh boy, it looks like the Bacharachs are running away and hiding in the Eastern Colored League. They are 7 games up on the Cuban Stars East. Now, the fun thing about this, and I got to talk about this a little bit. Many of these players. Oh, Jose Fernandez is injured. Many of these players on the Cuban Stars, especially, have players who played in the major leagues.
Right.
And so it's kind of there's another. This guy's one of your favorites too, isn't he? Alejandro Ohms. He's another guy.
I like him. I'm doing a painting of him as we speak. He's another one.
Cool.
He's a
So
cool
so
guy.
there's a number of these guys. Like Mike Herrera played for, and if you look at their stats, he played for Boston. And if you look at his all levels, you'll see he played for Havana Cuban Stars West, and he played over here, and he played over there, and he played for Almendares, and he played, so whatever stats are known. But he did have those seasons with the Boston Red Sox. Who else was in there? I believe. There's at least 3, 4 players running around here that were former major league players that are here. Another one of my favorites right here. Have you done one of Valentin Drake?
No.
No, you ought to check
No.
this guy out. This guy is in the Cuban Baseball Hall of Fame as well. One heck of a player as well, and another one of these guys who kind of flies under the radar. But a fast, good outfielder,
Oh,
good on
nice.
base. He is in the Cuban Baseball Hall of Fame. There's a number of guys that are in here that are in the Cuban Baseball Hall of Fame as well. So anyway, that's what I'm doing here. It's kind of like the backstory to you guys' backstories.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's another one of my favorites right there, Spot Poles. I love Spot Poles.
Oh yeah, Spotswood,
I
baby.
think he's very, very fun. John Henry Lloyd. I mean, these names. I mean, and like I said, that's 36-year-old John Henry Lloyd.
Yeah, he was at the end of his career at that point.
But if you see these guys when they were younger, the base gen ages them. They actually look different than what they would if you were seeing them at age 22 or whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. It all of that context and flavor, and that's what this game is really good at doing, and let you create your own stories, which is kind of fun. So
Yeah,
anyway, all right,
that's
I'm gonna throw you back on for so we get you wrapped up and out of here because I like I said I can blab until the sun comes up. There you are. Thank you so much. This was great. This was a lot of fun. I learned so much about you and your work and what you're doing, and I hope people enjoyed it. I think this was great.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much, Philip. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, man, and we'll see how this goes down the road, and whatever other projects. Anytime you want to come back on here, let me know, man. We'd love to have you.
I'd love that. Yeah, I'd
Cool.
really appreciate that. That'd be so fun.
All right, thank you so much. You guys, you have a good night.
Thank you, Philip. Same to you. Take care. Stay well.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Good night.